kind of different from what they are. We talk, we see things are not normal.
Hey, how the hell are you?
Look at that, jumping the gun. Wow. I'm fine. How are you?
Okay.
Much better this week. We ironed that stuff out with last podcast. Ended up being a good thing.
Yeah.
They took care of it on their end pretty quickly. Want to thank those guys. So thanks last podcast on the left, fellas. It was Henry that reached out to me. He was my contact. So it ended up being okay.
The devil on your side.
We did, however, as a result of that, we took down our TeePublic shop, but that's not because of the last podcast. That was because of a number of other things that were sort of brewing in the background. But you know what? It's a good thing. We're going to retire all those designs from TeePublic. If we find another print-on-demand place we want to work with, we might do that. But our goal now is to silkscreen all of the designs.
They'll be better quality, and we can keep track of how things are going.
And like you said, I can actually make more for my artwork than TeePublic does.
That's the thing as an artist, isn't it? Like when you see other people making more money from your creations than you.
Yeah. And that's fine. I mean, that's what they do. They provide a service for that.
Yeah.
But the other thing this allows us to do, it keeps letting us work with Forest Passage Printing, who printed our Awoken Tree shirts and they printed several years Alba Twitch Day shirts. I'm not sure if they did last year's or not, but I think they'll be doing them again next year. They do a wonderful job, and they treat us really well. So it allows us to support another independent business and have our friends make our merch. You know,
That always feels a lot better.
it ends up being a good thing. So what we'll probably do is we'll bring the designs back one at a time. We'll do a pre-order. Whoever wants that design can order it. And then we'll make a few more than actually pre-ordered. And then we'll move to another design a short time later. I don't think we'll do it monthly, but every now and then we'll do it, bring the designs back.
I know my mother thought this was a phase, but you really can't have too many T-shirts. Like if the amount of band T-shirts and, et cetera, T-shirts that the two of us have had over our lives.
I know. I've got shirts.
Older than a lot of our friends.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Well, on tonight's show, I'm going to be talking with Charlie. Charlie has an account from when he was young of a sinister bunny.
I always find those quizzical because, I think of bunnies as being the most benign, sweet, amazing creatures.
It's not quite a bunny man. I want to call it a bunny man, but it's not. I think I'd be forcing it into that box if I was to call it that. I kind of want to put it in that category because we haven't had a bunny man in a while, and I like the bunny man account.
Well, I mean, do we have to have a subvariant from different animals?
Well, the question was it a man or was it just a bunny, a giant bunny that was at the foot of his bed?
Yeah.
I don't know. Charlie also has encounters with other weird entities, which may be or maybe not related to abduction stuff. Some strange stuff in the woods, which may be or maybe not Bigfoot stuff. We'll talk to Charlie in a moment. I want to thank our patrons first. Thank you so much, patrons. Without your support, there would be no Strange Familiars. Thank you for your help. If you like Strange Familiars and you'd like to help support us and get extra content besides, you can become a patron at Patreon. It's patreon.com/strangefamiliars. All of our patrons get 2 full exclusive episodes of Strange Familiars every month. Plus, they get commercial-free versions of the regular shows every week. Again, patreon.com/strangefamiliars if you want to help out.
I wanted to mention that we did get some prizes this week in the mail, and I wanted to say thank you. We got a cute postcard from the other Athol.
Oh, yeah, Maddie sent us a postcard from the other Athol, which was in Iowa?
Idaho.
Idaho, yes. And John, who was on a few episodes ago, who had the Bigfoot come out of the woods and either sign back to him or else mimic whatever sign.
Oh, yeah. I remember that one.
He sent a really cool Bigfoot ornament for us.
Where there's literally the woods is coming out of Bigfoot.
Yeah, it's really cool. Mm-hmm. So thank you both for that. It's very thoughtful. Thank you for reminding me of that, Allison.
You know I love mail.
Mail is good. All right, let's go ahead and talk to Charlie. All right, tonight we're talking with Charlie, who's going to share with us some strange experiences from his past. How you doing tonight, Charlie?
I'm doing well, doing well. Ready to sit down and chat through some of these stories. I did a little discovering ahead of time, actually. Found out some more information about them than I thought I knew. So,
how far back do these go?
Back to, well, technically, I guess back to about, I was 2 or 3. I don't remember that far back, but spent some time going over some stories with my mom. Just basically her mentioning that basically in and around toddler age, I started showing signs that maybe I was communicating with some folks that she couldn't see.
Well, that's a good place to start as any.
Yeah, I mean, I guess even before I was born, we'll go back. My mom actually grew up with some abilities of her own. She had some experiences with seeing things in her house. She had seen an indigenous man in her bedroom one night who actually came up, and he was very angry and came up and slapped her across the face. And she got up and ran into the bathroom, and she had the handprint on her face. So,
ooh, wow, yeah.
So, she had these abilities. Apparently her grandmother also had some abilities. So, and she had had what she had thought were dreams with her grandmother when her grandmother had passed, coming to her and explaining she was lonely. And then my mom's grandfather was there, and he ended up passing like a day or two later. So she definitely had these abilities. Now, she mentioned when I was about 2 or 3 that I was speaking to that grandmother who had passed. I didn't really know her well. I was quite young and had spent a little time with her, but my mom would catch me talking to somebody, and she'd ask who I was talking to, and say I was talking to her grandmother, and would describe her and stuff, and say like she was there, she was hanging around us, she was watching over us. So I don't remember that, just what my mom has told me about that. And I guess as a child, I did suffer night terrors quite often, to the point of just being hysterical, not being able to calm me down.
Now, do you remember these? Like, or remember the feeling? Or is this just something your mom told you about?
Well, I know the feeling because I still have them as an adult.
Oh, fun. Great fun.
Yeah. I find that there are certain times they're worse than others. I have also found that if I take some CBD oil or THC oil or a combo of both before I go to bed, I don't have them.
Interesting.
But yeah. There was a time I stopped doing that for a while to see, I suffer from insomnia as well, to see if that had gone away, and I stopped taking that stuff, and sure enough, the night terrors came back. So I remember the feeling. I would say it's not quite sleep paralysis. I've had that maybe just a couple times through my life that I remember anyways. But it's close to that feeling of not being able to move. But it's more of just a frozen in fear kind of feeling. The heart racing, basically the fear just lingering, even though you're awake, but it's still in you. Like a fight or flight response, usually a flight or freeze for me.
Yeah.
Of these night terrors. Now, I thought this was a night terror, but after speaking to my mom, getting some more information around it. So this was the bunny visitors that I had emailed you about. Basically what this was and I got, so the age was I was about 6 or 7. We had just moved from one house to a new house, and it kind of just started in and around that time. And it lasted about a month, is what my mom said. So what was happening is my mom would come into the room because I would be screaming hysterical, and I'd be pointing at the end of my bed and saying that there was a big white bunny, big teeth, abnormally sized. My mom said that I would describe it as being very big, not like your standard white rabbit. Mm-hmm. So she would come in and thought I was having nightmares, but after she would be in my room, and this is the part I didn't remember or recall her telling me about, kind of creeped me out. She said that even after she came into the room, I would be insisting that it was still there staring at me.
Oh, weird.
Yeah. And apparently that's what it would do. It would sit at the end of my bed and it would just stare at me. It didn't ever do anything. It didn't come towards me. It would just sit and stare.
Wow.
Yeah. So basically my mom told me, just based off of her own experiences, to ask it why it was there. I was too freaked out to do that. She told me to tell it to go away, that it should leave me alone. And she said eventually she came in my room and we both just yelled at this bunny at the end of my bed. She said she bought me a dream catcher and stuff. And then shortly after it stopped.
For anyone listening, that is sound advice, actually. Just ask it to go away. I've had a number of people contact me that were, very upset and say, please help me. This thing's bothering me. It's bothering my child, whatever the case is. And my first advice, and this is based on things Brother Richard told me. This is things based on, other people who've been doing this longer than I have told me. Just first thing, just ask it to go away. Tell it, you're upsetting me. You're scaring me. Please stop and go away. And it has an amazing success rate. The number of people who've come back and told me, hey, it worked, is pretty high. So that's, it's pretty sound advice, at least to try that first.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I mean, it seemed to have worked in this case. Don't know that I've seen the bunny again. Not that I remember anyways.
Yeah. Or if you do, I expect a call.
Oh, for sure.
So do you remember anything about the bunny, just that it was there? And it was white, you said?
Yeah, it was white, had really big teeth, that it was larger than just a normal bunny. And I don't know, because I don't fully recall this stuff for whatever reason, in and around that time period in my life, I don't have a lot of memories of it, which I wonder about as well. Why don't I remember much around that time period? But I do recall that in what I flash back to is it stood up on its hind legs, not, like it looked almost more cartoon-like in the fact that it didn't sit like a normal bunny. It would be up on its hind legs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's really all I recall of that.
Do you remember anything else about the way it looked? It was just white, or
just white. The red eyes. So like the white bunnies do have the red eyes, and just really large teeth. I recall them not looking like bunny teeth, like, the two big front teeth.
Mm-hmm.
I remember it having more of like a creepy, like big, I don't know, just big, like non-bunny looking teeth. I don't know how to.
Well, it's not quite a bunny man, but I'm gonna, I kind of want to put it in that category.
Yeah, I don't know. I wish I remember better.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember about how tall it stood, like at the end of your bed?
I would say, from this one image I have in my mind, I would say it was a good 2 or 3 feet. Like, it was big.
Right. So, probably not man size, but bigger than a pet bunny.
Well, much bigger than a pet bunny.
Yeah. I love the creepy bunny stories, and as a rabbit owner, I still love them.
Well, and I've owned rabbits later in my earlier childhood, and then again as an adult. And I love bunnies.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what this was. Like, I don't think my house was haunted. Mind you, something else happened in that house as well. It didn't feel like anything like that. Like, I don't know what it was. I tried to look up this kind of stuff, and other than, Bunny Man, I can't figure out what this would have been. And to still be there after I'm awake, that's the part that really creeped me.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, my mom, I should say, that has abilities, or had, she basically blocked them out. So by this point in her life, she wasn't seeing anything. After that thing happened, she kind of, like I did with this bunny visitor, basically shut it off. She pictured closing a door in her mind, and she shut it all away. So at this point, I'm seeing something, she can't see it. Maybe if she still had those abilities or was still open to that part, she might have seen something. I don't know.
That's really interesting. Literally picturing shutting a door and just willfully shutting it off. I don't blame her. I just, I don't know if I've heard that before. That's really interesting.
Yeah, she's just kind of like ignored it, and with enough time of ignoring it and picturing shutting that door, it just went away.
Well, I've often likened it to, like drawing or something. When somebody says, I have this ability, and I often say, well, it's not a magic power. We all have access to it. I think it just comes a lot easier to some people. And if you think of it like that, I mean, if you can stop drawing and stop practicing drawing, and I imagine you'd lose a measure of that skill if you just stopped entirely.
Exactly. Yeah. And that, I think now, at this stage in my life, I'm kind of starting to explore that. And I feel like a lot of these memories are coming back, and, maybe I'm noticing things a little more often now because I'm kind of exploring that aspect of myself again.
You do. As soon as you kind of tune into that, radio channel or whatever you want to call it, you're going to start noticing stuff. Absolutely.
Dude, ever since you emailed me back, I've had something weird happen that I was going to get to too.
Okay, interesting. Very interesting. Well, let's move on to the next thing after the bunny. I'll spend too much time on the bunny, given the opportunity.
This next one was really weird too, and it happened in the same house. I would say maybe a couple years later. I'm thinking I'm thinking maybe 10 actually, maybe 10 at this point. So my sister we used to have sleepovers. She'd come sleep in my room. It'd be an excuse just to stay up late.
Sure, yeah.
Drive my mom nuts coming in if I have to come. So this was one of those nights my sister was sleeping in my room. Now my bed was pushed up against one wall. So she was on that side, the wall side, and then I was on the side that was just, open to the rest of the room. So we had fallen asleep, and I woke up to my sister kind of shaking my shoulder and then poking at me, right? And I wake up and I'm kind of like, what's going on? And like I remember being a little mad. I was like, why are you waking me up? And all of a sudden, like I could hear, she had like this panic in her voice. She was whispering, and she's pointing over to my side of the bed. So I turn and look, and there was this like glowing orange figure. It looked like a little girl, and she was kind of sitting beside the bed. So she's glowing orange, looked like a little girl with like black hair. But the part that freaked me out was her eyes. They were like all black and like much larger than a normal eye. They looked like the gray alien eyes almost, but a little smaller and not as oblong, I guess. They were more horizontal. Mm-hmm. But they had that look to them, that shape. Again, I look at this thing and at this figure, and I tell my sister, just close your eyes, and when you wake up, it's going to be gone. Just close your eyes. I'm thinking at this point I'm having a dream. So I'm telling her, just close your eyes, go to sleep, it'll be gone. So I try to follow my own advice, and I close my eyes, and I'm laying there, and I look again, and it's still there. So like, I remember like my sister was holding my hand the whole night. She gripped on, turned away. I think she fell asleep. And I remember being awake for a bit, and every time I kept looking, I kept thinking like, okay, now I'll really be awake and it's not going to be there. But every time I rolled over, she was there still. Oh. And like it just lingered, just staring at us. Didn't say anything. I didn't try to communicate with it.
And it was sitting down.
Just sitting down beside the bed. Just
on the floor.
On the floor, yeah. My bed was kind of lower, so like it was pretty much as I'm laying in bed, like its head is like I could see basically from like just below the shoulders up. But I like the first time I looked over, I kind of leaned, so I got most of the body.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I laying there freaked out, but eventually I just fell back asleep. You think I would have got up and ran or not gone to sleep at all, but I would say within 10, 15 minutes of if I'm trying to judge the time, it's hard to now going back in my memories. It seemed like a really long time, but I don't know that it was. Eventually I fell back asleep. The weirdest thing to me is that the next morning we woke up and we said nothing to each other.
Mm-hmm.
I woke up and I thought, well, that was a terrifying dream. But it was so real that I remember the next day we were going to the beach, and every time I closed my eyes to go swimming, like I got like a flashback to that face. Like it was like
wow.
in my memory. For like weeks I was terrified. I had a really hard time sleeping. And still never asked my sister about it. I thought, well, that, it was a dream. And then it wasn't until I was 32, so 2 years ago, I asked my sister about it because I started getting back into this stuff through COVID. Like I've always kind of been in and out of, the paranormal and
Mm-hmm.
aliens, all that kind of stuff. But really started feeling passionate about it again. And I decided I'm going to ask her, called her up one day and I was like, do you remember this? And she's like, oh my God, yeah.
Oh, wow.
She's like, I thought that was a dream. Like she started freaking out. She's like, I thought that was a dream. I'd never talked to you about it because I thought it was a dream. And I described it. I was like, what did it look like? To see if she saw the same thing. And she described it exactly the same.
That was my question. Yeah, to see if she saw exactly what you saw. Oh, that's weird. Wow.
But yeah, it was just so realistic. And the part that just bugs me is that we never said anything to each other the next day. Like, I find that part really weird that we just did our business.
I do hear that, but it's usually from like two adult men that saw Bigfoot or something. And like one of them will talk to me and like, I don't know why, but we never talked about that. Which if it's two adult men, you figure, well, it was a weird experience. Maybe they just didn't want to like break down that barrier or whatever, or just, dwell on the weirdness or whatever the case. But with this two kids, you'd think you would have talked about it, like, hey, remember that?
Yeah, well, and especially at that age too, like, I know I was just kind of starting to get into stuff, just, like, I was starting to get into that kind of world. Like, I was interested in the paranormal at that stage, I would say. So like, it wouldn't have been super abnormal for me to be like, oh my God, like something actually happened, know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Never saw the same thing again?
Never saw it again. And again, like I asked my sister, I was like, so did you have anything else weird happen there? And she said the only thing she ever had happen was she heard a man yelling from the basement. But we lived in townhouses that were attached. Like we had a house on either side of us, so no one was home. She said, but I find it could have been a neighbor. Without there, I can't really tell. But nothing else weird happened there that made me think it had something to do with the house itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know what you might actually not know what this show is because I think it was a Canadian show. There was this Canadian animated series called Reboot.
No, never. Not familiar with it.
Yeah. There was a character on that show that kind of looked like this figure. I remember thinking that back then. I was like, it kind of looks like that. Like when I looked at it, I was like, kind of looks like this character from this show. But yeah, it was a weird Canadian animated show. Yeah. That was probably the last thing that happened for me childhood-wise. It seems, and I feel like this is kind of backwards from what I normally hear, as soon as I kind of hit puberty and like teenage years, nothing really happened. Mm-hmm. It kind of like I didn't experience anything. I don't know if it was just because I was focused on other things or what it was, but yeah, there's kind of a blip where nothing really happened. Now, with these two experiences, I'm starting to wonder, because I've got back into things again, been doing a lot of meditating and that sort of thing. And in my meditations have like had flashes, like if I was doing this meditation on astral projection just to see something that's always kind of interested me. But I started, getting this tingling all over my body when I'm doing this meditation. And I started getting like these weird flashing images of these beings kind of leaning over and looking at me. Mm. I couldn't really see much of them except for just like an outline, right? So, I had this happening and I had COVID recently, a couple weeks back. And in my feverish state also started having these images flash to me. And again, could just be fever dreams or whatever, but I kept feeling like, not that there was a presence in my house, but like I was flashing back to a time where something was around me. Mm-hmm. And part of me wonders if these experiences had something to do with an abduction type experience. I had a psychic medium tell me recently that she believes I have been abducted. Other than these two scenarios, if it happened, I don't remember it.
Right. Yeah. And I have to be very careful about, encouraging that or leading someone down that pathway because, just because I feel like I experienced blank, then I start asking questions. But, when you're describing something standing by your bed and you're describing those black eyes, my mind immediately went there anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. And looking back, I mean, at the time I thought ghost.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah.
Looking back, I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah. And I have some stuff like that kind of lingers in my childhood, stuff that I was originally thinking dreams, and then, just like you, the more I got into this, the more I started looking at things. And then when I had adult quote-unquote abduction experiences, I always qualify that I don't think I ever left my bed. But whatever these weird experiences where I started looking back on some of these things I remember from my childhood and going, ooh, was that exactly what I thought it was, or is that something else? The answer is I don't know.
We probably won't know, right?
Yeah, that's the huge thing with all this. There's so many question marks all around it, which is why we have to an extent, rely on witness impressions and, like, what are your feelings? So if in 8 months, you come back to me and say, I really feel like there was definitely some kind of abduction stuff going on, I would put more weight in that than if I came to the conclusion, like, hey, Charlie, I think you were abducted. There's not as much weight in that for my part because that's just me from the outside making a call.
Either way, super weird things.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And for the record, I don't know if, what was going on there. Which, again, I would rely on your impressions and your feelings because you were there.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, I thought then ghost, but looking back, I'm starting to wonder. So yeah, as I kind of go through this stuff a little bit more too, if more comes to fruition, if I remember some stuff, I'll definitely reach out. But yeah, the rest of the things that happened to me happened probably from my 20s on until most recent, just a couple weekends ago.
Okay. So when they came back or when things started happening again, what was that?
Yeah, so I guess when things started happening again, it was, I think it must have been, now that I'm thinking about it, when I met my now wife. One of the things we bonded over is that we were into this stuff. And I remember thinking that was super cool. She's into aliens, she's into ghosts, like, all right. So I married her. But yeah. But yeah, I would say that's probably when it sparked up again. We kind of I shared these stories with her, and she shared some stories of her own. She believed that there was some sort of activity in her house. She had, living in her mom's basement at the time, she had heard some shuffling around on the floor in the basement. She would hear whispering. Things would kind of move around upstairs. And I ended up, I guess, kind of staying there part-time. We would kind of stay at my house a couple nights, her house a couple nights, and I experienced the same thing, this shuffling around in the basement. We heard some whispering. I thought it sounded like either mommy or help me. She thought it was saying her name, similar to those words, I guess. We kind of got back into it, just having these experiences. We moved out of her mom's house, and we were living in an apartment at that point. Every summer we'd go camping, and we'd go to Algonquin Provincial Park. So our first shared experience happened there. So we're hiking off the Highway 60 corridor that runs through Algonquin, and we're walking through this kind of marshy area on a boardwalk. In the middle of this boardwalk, all of a sudden we heard this screaming, and it was basically like a woman. I thought like either a woman was being killed, eaten by a bear. I don't even know. Like, it was terrible, terrible screaming. I've since, after I came home and stuff, I researched different animal sounds, because I know sometimes foxes can sound like screams, different animals that can kind of sound like a human screaming, but I couldn't find anything that sounded, it was so perfectly just like a woman scream. And we're standing there in the middle of this boardwalk wondering, like, should we go make sure, like, is somebody hurt? And the screaming was coming from the part of the trail that we still had to walk, of course. Unfortunately, not coming from behind us where we'd already been. So we were kind of just too nervous to do anything. We were freaking out. We had this crazy fear come on us, and we're just standing there, and we're like, let's just sit in the middle of this boardwalk. So we sat in the middle of this marsh on this boardwalk and ate our lunch, oddly enough. Just trying to figure out, like, should we keep going? I don't know. Like, to me, looking back, it almost felt like the screaming, because we had this reaction of like, oh my gosh, we've got to go help. But then this like fear, like, no, this is not right. Mm-hmm. It almost felt like something was trying to get our attention to keep going that way. Mm-hmm. Looking back on it, it wasn't until it was a couple years later we were watching a TV program on Bigfoot, and they're describing, there are these guys describing this fear, this dread, and we definitely had that feeling, like, beyond just hearing somebody. I get, you hear somebody scream, that's gonna freak you out, but it felt deeper than that. And looking back, they were talking about it's like they talked about the woods and stuff going quiet, and I was like, you know what, that actually happened. Like, I'm remembering back as I'm watching the show thinking, like, yeah, everything got really, really quiet just before and then after that scream. And I didn't think really anything of it at the time until afterwards, where it was almost like a cue for that memory to come back. Mm-hmm. We had heard, you hear it's August, so you hear the cicadas a lot. Yeah. Buzzing, the birds, like there's so much wildlife in that area that there's quite a lot of sound going on around you if you're paying attention. But at that moment, there was just nothing. It was just dead silent. And I, like, for weeks obsessively researched if, like, somebody got attacked by a bear, somebody got hurt in that park. Like, I was searching the news thinking, like, something had to have happened. Unless somebody was just screwing around and screamed. But it was just really weird. I don't know whether it was, like, a Bigfoot encounter or whatever, but you hear stories in the Algonquin area more of the Wendigo. And, the Wendigo mimics human voices and stuff like that. So that's actually what I'm thinking more so than Bigfoot. But then watching that TV series and hearing about that silence and dread, I was like, I don't know. It was something weird. I don't know what it was.
Did you end up walking in that direction then?
We did have to, yeah. And I was super creeped out the whole time. Nothing happened afterwards, though. Mm-hmm. Like, we sat there for a while. Before we moved on. I don't really know, but yeah, we definitely sat there for a bit before going our way.
So these two sounds associated with Bigfoot, not the only two, of course, but the two that I find kind of eerie and questionable are the crying baby and the screaming woman, because I think that we're programmed as humans to help other people. And I think if you hear a crying baby, you know, generally people want to help that. If you hear a screaming woman, I think generally people want to help. And if that's not what they are, if this is something mimicking, whether it's Bigfoot or whatever else would make these sounds, because I don't believe anybody's actually seen Bigfoot make these sounds, but it's attributed to Bigfoot because they're happening in, I guess, in areas where Bigfoot is. If they are making those sounds, to what end would that be if they're mimicking these sounds? And there's not a lot of happy answers to that. It's a pretty creepy thing.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I felt at the time, is that that's how I felt, is that noise was meant to draw us towards it.
Mm-hmm.
We were both just like, no.
Yeah, it's...
Sandwiches, and we'll think on this.
Right, yeah. Yeah, those are among some other things, but those two things really do make me think about that phenomenon. Like, what's the point in that? Like, what would be the purpose be to try to draw people in?
Well, and I found it interesting too. Like, there are definitely some similarities between the Bigfoot experience and the Wendigo that you hear more of in that kind of Algonquin area, with the, you know, the terrible smells, the mimicking of human voices or babies crying, that silence in the forest. Like, it's all kind of the similar symptoms of different things.
Right. Yeah.
It's just interesting.
Yeah. I mean, even a few years ago, I think before people were a little bit more aware of, you know, First Nations folklore and stuff, I think a lot of people used Wendigo and Bigfoot fairly interchangeably.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. I mean, that happened. Didn't really scare us off of looking into stuff. We ended up moving to a different area in kind of the greater Toronto area that is known for having quite a few haunted spots. So we got into the habit of doing some ghost hunts and that sort of thing. So we had some experiences through that. We investigated one place where we ended up, both of us that night, I don't know if it was just the experience or not, but both of us had terrible nightmares. My wife had a nightmare of a man just like right in her face. I have had this dream a couple times, which is concerning, that my wife has actually had to wake me up from. And this was, I think, the first time I had it. I have dreams where, like, I'm possessed. I don't know how I feel about demons and what that actually is or whatever. Like, I'm not a very religious person, but I have these, it's happened a couple times, of being possessed, and I feel in the dream like this anger that, like, I turn animalistic to a certain degree, and my wife actually has to wake me up because I'm like growling in my sleep.
Oh wow.
And making like this like guttural, like kind of like throat noise that terrifies her. This was the first time I had this, but it has happened a couple times. More so at a house we lived in just a couple years ago, where I would say we had the most amount of experiences. But yeah, so that happened when we're living in this house at this time frame. This was 2016, I guess. 2016, yeah. We're living in this house that was built by the only family that lived in it. It was built in the 40s by the husband, and he raised his family, brought his wife there, and he worked in like the shipyard. So some of the finishes in the home, like we had like the railing going upstairs was like the old railing from a ship. It was beautiful.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, but yeah, when we were living there, we just kept having, the only thing we had happen there was this whistling. We'd be watching TV and you just all of a sudden hear like this, like, and it would be like, you'd be like cooking dinner would happen, or like it would happen at random times. And it was only when we lived in that house. There was nobody outside like calling their cats or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
it would just happen. We'd be sitting there watching TV. And we'd look at each other like, yeah, you heard that? Yeah.
Wow.
We had that happen. Our time living in that area too, we saw a UFO at this lookout spot, and we kind of just watched it fly around for a while before it disappeared.
Would it look like just a light, or was there more to it than that?
It was just a light. Yeah. It was kind of not like a white light, more of like it had more of like a greenish hue to it.
Mm-hmm.
And was just moving in the weirdest of ways. It would like shoot sideways and kind of diagonal. Like it was just kind of dancing around. Yeah, it didn't look like any, and this is pre-drones and that sort of stuff.
Right, yeah.
The weird part is I don't really remember that happening. My wife remembers that more than I do. But yeah, we did another investigation into another place where I had that same possession dream. Yeah, so I don't know, not a ton, but we did a little ghost hunting, so we had some stuff happen. You start poking around in it, you're probably gonna experience some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
At this stage in our life too, like we thought, oh, how cool would it be to live in a haunted house and like have some solid, like we could investigate, we'd have some solid evidence, at least to ourselves, like there's some stuff happening. So yeah, we kind of joked around about it when we were living there, and then we decided to move out of the Greater Toronto area up into, I'm okay talking about kind of where I am, Georgian Bay area. So the house we moved into up there, we had a lot happen. So the house itself was built kind of mid to late 1800s. The story we were told is that it was connected to the house beside it at one point, but separated off later on. When it was connected to the house beside it, it was a hotel. It was a hotel that would have been on a railroad that came through there. And story goes is that this hotel was a little bit more than a hotel. It may have been a brothel. Mm. I have found maps that show it being a hotel. I haven't found anything mention about a brothel, but I don't know that there would have been mention of that kind of thing anyway.
Yeah. I think a lot of hotels were hotels plus back in the day.
Yeah, so that's what this place was. So the story goes, I've heard from quite a few people in town whose families have been there for generations that there is, that is the rumor, but it seems to be that quite a few people have that same rumor. So I believe that probably did go on there. So you kind of things started at that house like day one. When we moved up there, my wife went up ahead of me just to do some cleaning and stuff before I got there with the movers. So she's cleaning and stuff, doing a quick, mop, that sort of thing. And day one, she starts seeing like kind of shadows out of the corner of the eye. Just felt like she was being watched. The house itself had like an addition. The back part of it was an addition, but the front part was all original. And in that front part, there were like the windows that were kind of cut out, like in the kitchen, just like those decorative open, like they've got the pillars, but then you've got like a little ledge. So be like something would peek above that. And the height of that ledge would have been probably maybe about 3 feet off, 3.5, 4 feet. So, my wife was cleaning and she kept kind of seeing this thing kind of peek above that ledge. So I get there and she's like, dude, I think we finally got a haunted house. This might be kind of cool. It was not cool at all.
That was my next question. So what was it like? Kind of said, I want to live in a haunted house, and then living in one.
It was not fun. It progressed. Like we just see shadow figures and stuff a lot of the times, but it would start to progress to the point. So we started having mood changes, just anger out of nowhere. Like I'd be sitting there watching TV and I'd feel like this. I'm a very calm person. I'm not. It usually takes a lot to get me angry. Probably nice to a fault. And out of nowhere, I'd just get like this rage just building up in me. And I'd just be watching like a comedy show on TV or something when this would happen. Both of us kind of started slipping into a bit of a depression when we were there. Started off as a bit of a depression and got much worse. Yeah, so we're seeing these figures. I started to have these dreams of this woman. She was very thin in the face, long dark hair, and I don't know whether her mouth actually looked like this or if this is just the way it presented, but she would be kind of sitting on this couch and she'd have a man under each arm and she'd have this impossibly wide grin, like almost like the Joker kind of smile. Mm-hmm. With the bright red lipstick, and she just looked like she had like this air of like power, right? Like she's got a guy under each arm. Yeah, I don't know. She just presented really powerful, and I kept having this dream, and it wouldn't actually be like nothing was happening in this dream. It would just always be this same image of me just look. I don't even know. Yeah, it was just like me looking at this woman sitting on this couch with these two men smiling at me. And then normally I would kind of wake up or like that would just be it. That'd be all I would remember of the dream each time. So I thought like it was just weird that I was having reoccurring dreams. So like I mentioned it to my wife one day. I got to the point I was like, I got to tell her about these dreams. So I tell her about this dream and I start describing the woman and she's like, and the smile. I was like, wait, you know, like she was all of a sudden she starts describing the mouth. And I was like, what do you know, like, what are you talking about? So apparently she had been dreaming of this same woman.
Wow.
With the same long dark hair, this thin face, this impossibly wide grin. Like I just let her describe her and I was like, yep, same person. But her dreams were taking place in the basement of the house. What was happening is she would be there and this woman would slowly climb on top of her, to the point where her face would be right over her face and she'd be doing that terrifying humor. Yeah.
Yeah. No, thank you.
Yeah. So she had some other dreams too where she would be under the other part of the house, the addition. And there were kind of under this part it was a true crawl space. There were heaping piles of dirt. And in her dream, she'd be climbing over these piles of dirt. And in her dream, she said she would know, like, there was something under there. There was something there. In her dream, she never dug it up, and I didn't go exploring down there ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But she sensed that this woman would be behind her, kind of chasing her out of the larger part of the basement into this crawl space area. And there'd be moments where, you know, I'd fall asleep on the couch watching TV and my wife would be sitting there and she'd see out of the corner of her eye this figure standing in the bathroom doorway that you could kind of see if you're sitting on the couch, be off to your left-hand side. So she would see this woman in the doorway and this figure, and it at one point rushed her. Like she saw it coming out of her, the corner of her eye coming at her, and she turned to kind of look at it and be gone. At this point, too, as things are progressing, the depression got much worse. Both of us were extremely depressed. We had extreme impulse issues around drinking and that sort of thing, which is not our style. It was affecting our mood, whatever energy or something was lingering in this house. All through this time too, we were trying to conceive, and it wasn't happening. And looking back now, if this truly was a brothel and maybe this woman was somebody connected to that, I just think like her anger towards us trying to conceive and all that kind of stuff, like maybe it had something to do, like in a brothel, if a woman gets pregnant, well, she's kind of, you know, like that would be bad for business.
Sure, yeah.
That was kind of my feeling about it.
I didn't want to say it in case you were still looking for a haunted house, but before when you were saying, oh, you know, we were hoping we could move into a haunted house, my first thought was, yeah, you better be careful what you wish for there. You might not like it. It's one thing to go into somebody else's haunted house, but when you have to live with it, it's an entirely different thing.
So different, yeah. I mean, it'd be different if it was a happy, fun ghost, but this was, you know, or just the energy. I don't know if it was, you know, spirit or what, but whatever energy was lingering in that house was very, very negative.
Right. Yeah. I guess that's the other thing. You can't call it in too. It's like some people have these very kind of benevolent, fun ghosts, and you can't always call that. Get your choice. You
do party tricks for us.
Yeah. You get what you get, I guess.
We got a doozy. I even had like a buddy stay over one time, and he took a nap in the front bedroom that was part of the original house. He woke up with a growl. Something was growling at him in that bedroom. That's how he woke up. But yeah, it was, one night we're watching TV too. My cat kind of perks up like there's something behind me. And he's looking behind me, and all of a sudden jumps off the couch, runs towards the back bedroom, which is where we sleep. And I just thought it was kind of weird behavior. So I thought, what is he doing? Like, is there a mouse in here or something? Like, we get mice in there from time to time. So I thought, oh, crap, we've got another mouse in here. So I follow him back to the back bedroom, and he stopped in the threshold of the doorway to the bedroom, and his fur's all poofed up. So I look at what he's looking at, and he's looking at our bed, and in our bed was as if somebody were laying under the covers. There was a full body shape, like somebody was completely covered under the covers. So I freaked out, and I ran back to my wife, and I was like, there's somebody in her bed. You have to come see this. She comes back, and the sheets were fine. They were kind of rumpled, but they were flat. And this night I was not, was not drinking. I wasn't smoking anything. Like I was, I was stone cold sober. So I don't know what that was. My cat saw something. I saw something. It was weird. There was another night too. I'm laying in bed, and I hear whispering and breathing beside me on the opposite side of where my wife is. So I'm sitting there, and I'm trying to hear if I can pick up words, but it was just like this breathy whisper. I couldn't figure out words or anything. And I felt like all of a sudden, like something like laid on me, but like in me. I don't know. It was super weird. Like somebody just laid over top of my body. Like they just kind of like went into my body. I felt like this energy kind of come over me, and I freaked out, and I left the room. I left my wife in there. My thought is, it wants me anyways. I'm out. I'm going to the living room. So I kind of, she likes to make fun of me for that point, that I just abandoned this terrible ghost lady. All this happened, as the landlord, we moved out of there. We lasted a year, and I was like, we gotta move. Like, we can't stay here. The mental health, we weren't conceiving this child we wanted so badly. And yeah, so landlord told us basically, so the person that lived there before us, it was a mom and son, and the son had actually taken his own life, not in the house, but outside the house. We had also found out there were some drug overdoses. There was a drug overdose on the front lawn where somebody passed. We also have a friend that's living there now who thought we were crazy when we told him, oh, dude, you're moving into a haunted house. Good luck. But he did have something. He's pretty turned off to that stuff, and he literally thought we were nuts. But he did have something happen where he thought he saw somebody walk through the house. So that was kind of weird. But yeah, after we moved out, I did a FaceTime call with my niece, who had been at our house at that place. This was after we moved into our new place. And my niece was asking on this FaceTime call where the lady went. I was like, I thought she was referring to my wife. I was like, oh, she's right here. And she's like, no, the lady with the black hair and the red lipstick. Like, she started describing this woman.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that was kind of freaky. The whole time I lived there too, I had false awakenings all the time, which was, I've never had them any other time in my life. I would wake up, get ready for work, go to leave, and wake up.
That's, yeah. Those are weird dreams. If they're dreams, whatever they are, they're weird.
Yeah, it happened a lot there. Never happened before, never happened after. So I found it kind of weird that it was only that place where it happened. I think with this space too, like there's, it was on a railroad. It's right by a river that is north flowing. I've heard that could be that sometimes is a thing with areas of kind of, you know, some high strangeness going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that seems like a perfect kind of liminal bee's nest, really, you know, from everything that was going on there.
Exactly. Yeah. That's you know, I've looked at geomagnetic maps too, and the area we're living in is kind of a higher geomagnetic field, which, you know, again, I don't know how much to read into that, but that does seem to kind of coincide with areas.
Yeah. I mean, you know, people sent magnetic anomaly maps of the area I'm in, and you know, that area Toad Road that I spend so much time on, there's a big magnetic anomaly that just runs right along there. I mean, it's the road, basically. A couple of the other places, that Site 7 place we go to, big magnetic anomaly. So, you know, whether it's coincidence or not, I don't know, but there certainly seem to be at the places where these weird things happen.
Oh yeah, there is, like, it's kind of all around us, where we are kind of up the Bruce Peninsula, like Lake Huron is a huge geomagnetic field. So, and you know, if you read into some Canadian folklore, and it's all about like the sea monsters, or I guess they'd be lake monsters in the Great Lakes and stuff. From there, we moved, and everything stopped. Our moods, you know, got better. Everything was fine after that. We ended up, the next time we tried to conceive, we did.
Wow.
So yeah, so it was very strange. And then, you know, not much between that house and then just recently, maybe because I've kind of started trying to explore my childhood memories around this stuff. You know, I started hiking this one trail near where I work. It's literally like an 8-minute drive from where I work, and I get an hour lunch, so I go and just do a quick hike, and started hiking this trail, and I would just kind of feel weird on it. Just kind of eerie feelings at certain parts of the trail. I had my phone drain the one day there. I got there and my battery was like 65% in and around there. I go to leave, and it's probably a 30-40 minute hike that I did. I'm not on my phone. It's just in my pocket. It wasn't a cold day. I go to get in the car and my phone is just dead. So that was kind of weird. Along the trail too, I don't know what to make of this, whether it's just, you know, human activity, but all along the trail the one day I kept finding this light blue, like, sea glass. It was just kind of like, it'd be random parts on the trail, not just one section. Like, I'd find some here, then, you know, like, go another half a kilometer, I'd find some more. It was just all throughout where I was walking. I don't know what to make of it. I actually started picking it up and I was putting it in my pocket. And then at the end, I got to the end, I was like, I don't know, I'm just going to toss this. I don't know why I'm collecting this. But yeah, so I actually had something happen on this trail with my son the other weekend. So I took my son hiking just to get out of the house. He's 23 months, loves hiking. We've brought him hiking ever since he could walk, basically. So we took him out, and I was kind of questioning my choices as a parent, taking him hiking here. A, just because it felt kind of weird a couple times there, and B, it was a really, really windy day. So we're hiking, really windy. He's loving it. We're having a great time. And then all of a sudden we get to this spot, and he asked me to pick him up. So I thought, oh, it's weird. He's tired already. But okay, yeah, I'll pick you up for a bit if you need a little break. And as I pick him up, he clung tightly to my neck, and at the same time he's clinging on to me, all of a sudden I got this terrible feeling of like just dread. And I asked him, I was like, what's wrong? Are you scared? And he kind of gripped on tighter and he said yes. And I asked him what he was scared of, and he starts pointing into the forest off to the left, saying it's dark, it's dark. And my son's not afraid of the dark. He sleeps in the pitch black. Like, he's never complained about it before. He's never been afraid of the dark, right? So as he's pointing and saying it's dark, I noticed like the wind had completely stopped. There was no wind, no bird sounds, and there are a ton of birds on this trail. So I thought, this is too weird. Like, I've got this terrible feeling in the pit of my stomach. So I just held on to him, and I just pick up my pace, and I see it's kind of like a trail that kind of shortcuts to the end. So I thought, okay, screw it. We're cutting this hike short. We're taking this shortcut. He's a pretty heavy fellow, so I put him down as we get to this little shortcut. And then as we're walking, he starts asking, "Where'd Monster go? Where'd Monster go?" Pointing into the... And I'm like, I didn't even know he knew the word monster, first of all. I've never really talked to him, but it was kind of around Halloween, so maybe he had, we'd seen some decorations on people's lawns and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden he stops and he kind of crouches down and he's pointing into the woods and he's going, "Monster, monster, monster." And he's pointing, and I'm like, "Where, buddy? I don't see anything." And he's pointing to the same spot, like so adamant, like he sees something there and I can't see anything. He kept pointing after a while. I feel like he got tired of me not catching on, and he just kind of straightened up, waved into the forest and said, "Bye, monster," and just kept going.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I drove home, got him in the car, drove home. When I got home, I told my wife about this. So she started asking him, like, "Buddy, did you see a monster on the trail? Did you see something?" And he's saying, "Yeah." And so, it's hard to get a description out of him because he's 23 months and, he's not got a huge vocabulary at this point, but he's really good with his colors. So my wife asked him, "What color was it?" And he said, it was green. So yeah, I don't know what that was, but he saw something. I felt something for sure. And the forest just went completely dead. After we got out of that area too, the wind, I started noticing, oh, the wind's back. I'm hearing birds again. So I don't know what to make of that.
Mm-hmm. From the mouths of babes.
Yeah. I had a chance to go back actually to that trail, and I kind of want to because we've had a fresh snow, so I want to get a look around just to see if I notice anything. It's a pretty marshy area. I've noticed off in the woods. I don't know if they're like the tree structures or something. There's stuff back there I haven't explored just because I've been kind of, when I've gone there in the past, just trying to get through it really quick, just a quick little lunchtime exercise, right?
Right, yeah.
But I kind of want to go back and check out. It looked like there was some weird structures off the path into the forest a bit. So yeah, so that was the most recent experience. And then ever since you kind of reached back out to say, "Hey, do you want to come on the show?" And I listened to this episode recently. I think it was a recent one. I kind of go back and forth from the recent to the old ones, kind of catching up, meeting them in the middle. Mm-hmm. But you had some guys on that were talking about triple-digit times.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's happened every day, sometimes multiple times a day for myself since we got connected.
Oh, wow. Wow.
I don't know. Normally, if I notice a time on my phone, it's always the 12:34, the 1, 2, 3, 4.
Mm-hmm.
That's always been a thing I've noticed. I notice it a lot when there's something huge happening in my life. I've noticed something kind of transitional or that sort of thing. So I've always kind of just seen it as a pay attention, things are happening kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
This time is important, like not the time of day, but this time in your life is important is kind of what I've attributed it to, that I just need to be more present in those moments. So yeah, since we got connected, I'll wake up at 4:44 a.m. I'd notice I'll get in my car, turn it on, it'll be 5:55 p.m. Or, I 2:20, like literally every day. I started writing it down when it happened, but the one I keep seeing a lot is the 3:33. That one is both morning and night. I'm waking up and then I'm seeing it in the daytime too. But yeah, multiple days, it'll be like I get a 5:55 a.m. My alarm does not go off at that time. Mm-hmm. I actually don't have an alarm. I'm just waking up. Or like 4:44 a.m. and then I'll get one in the afternoon as well. Every single day consecutively. sometimes multiple times. I don't know what to make of that.
Yeah, I mean, those guys were doing some pretty serious research on it. I'm sure they would have more to say if you reached out to them. And in fact, now that you reminded me of them, I kind of want to contact them because I know they were having ongoing experiences. I want to check back in with them. You know, other than knowing it's a thing, I don't know what to make of that. You know, it's just an odd thing.
I just kind of am attributing it to, like, maybe because I'm starting to really seriously get back into this stuff. Like, over the last 2 years, since getting out of that house and, like, in COVID, I started up like a paranormal Facebook group for this area for folks to share their stories. And I've been, you know, reading those stories, reading into the areas that they're happening and stuff like that. So I kind of just attribute it to the fact that I'm looking into things, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, hey, that might be all it takes. Yeah.
I wonder. Yeah, it's just kind of bizarro, and the whole liminal places and extreme, you know, having activity happen around that. And I wonder too if you can have have that liminal thing in like a person, like when you're going through, you know, transitional periods.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So yeah, when I was at that terrible house that I was living at, you know, I kind of figured some stuff out about myself then. So I'm actually transgendered. So started transitioning through COVID, and then all this weird stuff started happening. So like I am literally you know, like I'm a liminal person right now.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
You know, like, so I almost wonder if that, you know, can be attributed to an increase in me noticing these kinds of things or having these experiences.
It may be. Sorry, I don't have a better answer, but you know, my gut says yes, but the other part of me says, you know, we probably don't get to know.
We just get to speculate.
Yeah, exactly. Charlie, thank you so much for sharing your stories.
Yeah, no worries, man. I just noticed we've been talking for 1 hour and 11 minutes. I'll just point that out.
Perfect.
Good note to end it on.
Well, Allison.
That's a deep subject.
You have brought here, by the way, while we're interrupting each other, someone said their favorite moment in all Strange Familiars history was on the recent patron show where I said, guess what? And you just said chicken butt. They said that was hands down their favorite Strange Familiars moment.
I think it's because of my nuanced approach to Bigfoot mythology and
Chicken butts.
And chicken butts, which is a sub-variant of the chupacabra, actually.
Oh, okay.
Don't write until I know what a chupacabra. Don't write until me.
What have you brought for us for our curiosity of the week?
I brought a beautiful little cased tintype.
So another cased image.
Yes. He is in a nice little case with 2 doves on the front of it.
Images of 2 doves. There aren't 2 doves stapled to the front of this case.
Not on this particular one, no. What's kind of confusing is when you look at these case images, it's not immediately apparent, unless you're a total nerd, whether it's a daguerreotype, an ambrotype, or a tintype. I already told you what this is, but would you have guessed otherwise? It's not a quiz, really. I guess it is.
Well, I know it's not a daguerreotype.
Yeah.
By looking at it. It doesn't have that kind of mirrored finish to it. And at this point, honestly, I forget what you told me it was.
It's an early tin.
I was going to say, I think it's a tin, but I was...
Yeah, I actually opened it up to double check.
Okay, yeah.
Some of those really early tins just look like ambrotypes because it's really almost the same thing, just the substrate's different.
These cases are so neat. Find me empty ones. I'm going to put drawings in them.
Yeah, but don't take the images out.
Yeah, I know.
Like, that was very popular in the 70s. People would put dried flowers in them, and they just pitch the pictures.
Oh, my goodness.
And then there was a brief period of time I heard where people where I guess the silver market was pretty high in the 70s, and they were trying to get the silver off of the plates, and people were like, well, who wants a picture of someone they don't know? And they just ditch them. But I think we're seeing more and more people are starting to value them again, I guess.
It's like we were saying before we hit record. Some of these cased images are
We're coming up on close to 200 years.
Yeah. And I honestly think they're undervalued for what they are. I think a lot of things are overvalued in the antiques market right now.
I mean, you're talking about a swung glass vase from the 60s. How much more that is worth than a one-of-a-kind, totally individual photograph of a human person from nearly 200 years ago.
Right. And the care and presentation to these, that they put in these cases, and
There's so many different elements to it, and they're like these aesthetic choices the whole time that you could change, and they're variable, and the fact that this is like perhaps the one image of a person.
right.
Like I can't.
Yeah.
That's what's always like.
I know it's our thing, so we're biased, but I really do think they're undervalued for what they are. I really do.
Yeah, you think about a little miniature painting of this size, how much that would be worth. Much more.
Mm-hmm.
This is a particularly nice case. I like this one with the two doves and a little fountain and a bouquet and double hinges. Yeah, it's just beautiful.
So we will be putting an image of this in the show notes. If you click on that, it'll take you to our Etsy shop where you can purchase that and other curiosities of the week. We still have some old photos of the week left.
I just got, like, within the past month, probably 40 or so more case images. So I feel like if you want a particular thing, like a kid or a baby or an old lady, I will have
A cat on a tombstone.
If you could see the disdain. Sure. I'll get you one of those. Have you ever seen the one? I think it's a squirrel that was someone's pet. It's a postmortem squirrel.
No.
It's a pretty famous one. I don't know if it's at the Nelson Atkins or if it's at the Met, but it's a lot of people's favorite photograph. But it's a postmortem squirrel, like dressed up and in a coffin. It's perhaps the coolest picture known to mankind.
That is neat.
I still think of one that we didn't get, like just missed out on a bid like 25 years ago when eBay was first starting. It was like this girl who had her doll in a coffin. And it was like, and there was water in it. It was like one of the most beautiful images ever. And we just.
It was amazing. Yeah.
For some reason, I guess we didn't know how to do a screenshot then either.
Yeah, I wouldn't have known.
I wouldn't have known how to do it.
Yeah. Way back.
Way back when you could sell things on eBay without photographs.
Yeah.
That was a fun time. The Wild West.
When you go to our Etsy shop, you will find lots of wondrous, strange things there. Mm-hmm. Besides photos, you'll find my books. All of my books are there, including Apparitions, my art book. One of the few places you can get Apparitions. You can get it from us. You can get it from John at Riverbend.
And you can get an American Daydream.
And an American Daydream. That's about it. My books come signed when you get them from Etsy. I've heard people are saying they make great Christmas gifts.
Are they? People are saying
People
that?
are saying. Mm-hmm.
Huh. Some very fine people are saying that?
Yes. Strange Familiars t-shirts are there, glow in the dark, and standard Awoken Tree designs, artwork, prints and originals, and more. Our Etsy shop name is Lost Grave. If you type in Strange Familiars, however, our stuff will come up. Hey, speaking of Etsy, Chad is still having his knife sale at his Etsy shop. I forget the date that ends, but I know it's still going on right now. So run to Chad's Etsy shop and check out the knife sale. His shop is Ruck Rabbit Outdoors. And our friends at Karmic Garden are also on Etsy. They have lots of nice smelling things, soaps and sprays and personal care items and such, including a Strange Familiar scent, which I hear is pretty popular with the ladies. I'm not kidding. That's what she told me.
Oh, okay. It was not my lack of faith in the smell, which the scent I actually do like. It was like the subtle hype master for yourself.
Look, I'm not selling it.
People are saying I'm very popular with the ladies.
No. No, not me. Just the Strange Familiar scent.
Just your smell.
It was the smell we chose together, Allison.
Real scent should be musty books.
Over at The Flowered Path, that other podcast that I do.
People are saying it's good.
Please like and subscribe. Strange Familiars people, come on over. You don't even have to listen. Just subscribe and like. No, I think there's a lot in common with Strange Familiars between The Flowered Path and Strange Familiars. You know, I talk about the kind of stranger aspects of the saint phenomenon, along with the normal. I give a biography, but I always make sure to hit the miracles and so forth.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways in even if you aren't particularly religious, there's a historical aspect, there's a mystical aspect, there's a wondrous aspect to it.
In any case, I'm preparing a show. It should be the next regular show of the Flower Path, and it's a very Strange Familiars show. So I might drop that in Strange Familiars feed as well as the Flower Path feed, because it's a very, very Strange Familiars topic. I think
Is this about the headless people?
No, I've already done that one.
Oh, okay. That seems Strange Familiars, right?
Well, like I said, there's a lot of crossover. I think all of these stories should appeal to Strange Familiars folks, but no, this next one, it's a doozy. I'll give a little preview. How's this?
Okay.
It's about a woman who gets repeatedly and frequently visited by spirits of the past, PASSED, spirits of the dead. One of them she describes, now this is from the 1920s.
Mm-hmm.
She's looking at it, and it appears the apparition takes on a checked pattern, like Flannel Man.
Interesting.
Yeah. The Flower Path episodes are less me doing commentary, more just me like telling the stories.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to do that, and then I'll do sort of a commentary on it. I don't know if that'll be like a Flower Path bonus thing, or if I'll just do that on Strange Familiars or what, but have a kind of Flower Path Strange Familiars crossover episode, I guess, with this upcoming. It'll be a bonus thing for Strange Familiars, folks. I don't know how long it's going to take me to put together, though, because I'm taking these accounts from this woman's diary, which she wrote, I think, from 1921 to 1929, and I'm just in 1922 right now. So I have a long way to go. It's going to be a very deep dive on this because it's really, really interesting stuff, as I said. Theflowerpath.com, and you can follow The Flower Path wherever you listen to podcasts. There's a YouTube channel as well. If you don't mind subscribing there, that would help me out. What else is new, Allison?
Oh, I can't think of anything in particular.
I think we covered it all for now.
Yep.
Christmas show upcoming with Brother Richard.
It's always a favorite.
Yeah, so we'll have that as our Christmas show. Probably do at least one other Christmas show, maybe two as well this year. So lots of content coming up. Thank you for listening, everybody. We'll be back soon with more Strange Familiars. Strange Familiars is a production of Dark Holler Arts, music, books, art, podcasts, and more. Intro and background music is by Stone Breath. If you want to hear more or purchase music by Stone Breath, you can go to stonebreath.bandcamp.com. Strange Familiars is on Facebook, facebook.com/strangefamiliars, where you can join the Strange Familiars gathering group. We're on Instagram at Strange Familiars, one word, and you can find us on the web at strangefamiliars.com.
Hail to the howling wind, to the rushing rain, to the flowing stream that carries the stars within each tiny grain. Hail to the impure blood from the twisted roots, through the purest hearts that tasted the juice of Babel's forgotten fruit. Hail to the snowy peaks, to the hammered stone, to the single eye that sees the dead so and living go to war. the desert sun, to the swirling sand, to the lonely men who write divine words, all with a mortal hand. Hail to the calling crows, with their songs of life, made from words of death, and hail to the ghosts who dance for days on end. Alice is a long time gone, my friend. Alice is a long time gone.